Welcome to the True North 365 podcast, where we bring valuable information the world needs to hear to live out their true potential, realizing they have everything they need inside of them to go higher, reach their dreams every single day of the year. We bring guests on the show who are living out their dream life to showcase their work, dig into the climb they endured to get from where they were to where they are today, exposing the entrepreneurial myth that it's all easy. In addition to smaller bite-sized clips of me just sharing my everyday thoughts on business, family, spirituality, and general well-being. So sit back, turn it up, and enjoy the episode. We're so grateful you're here. All right, I am so excited that you're here, Judy, on the True North 365 podcast. This has been a dream of mine to have a conversation with you and then share that conversation with the world, because ever since I met you and since, which was probably about a year ago, I have grown tremendously just by having you in my life. And it all really stems from the questions that you've been able to ask me since I met you and help me ask people questions. And in the time that we're in right now, we need people to be more aware and to be listening and to be compassionate and understanding towards our community, because we're facing a pandemic right now. So for those of you that are listening to this well after the recording's done, we are facing the coronavirus pandemic in the entire world right now. And so it's March 20th, 2020, which is kind of cool, 3/20/2020 that we're recording this session. And before I give the floor to you, Judy, I want to just tell our audience a little bit more about you. So Judy has turned an inherent love for people into a dynamic, lifelong career. Coaching since 1994, she is a 1996 graduate of CoachU, which is a certified self-leadership Axiogenics coach course, and earned the master certified coaching designation through the International Coach Federation in 1999. Judy dedicates herself to assisting clients in deepening their understanding, knowledge, and acknowledgement of their own intrinsic value, and is an expert in listening, being curious, and asking questions. She is a co-founder and past president from 1993 to 1994 of the National Speakers Association of the Colorado chapter, and founder of ICF, which is the International Coaching Federation Colorado chapter. And today she will be sharing with us the 3 keys for extraordinary support through curiosity, listening, and questions. So without further ado, I would like to hand the mic over to you, Judy, to further explain to us how you feel about what's happening right now with the pandemic, and then what we're going to cover today in our time together on this episode.
Thank you, Alex. It's my pleasure to be with you. And as I look around and listen around, I know that the situation is so fluid. It can change from morning till evening. It definitely changes from day to day. And so there is tremendous amount of uncertainty what is happening and what's going to happen. I had someone last night call me, and we were talking about, because we'd been on a program together, and I'd mentioned that I was self-isolating and not having any visitors. And he said, well, what are you going to do 5 weeks from now? I have no idea. There's really, I don't imagine any person in the world that knows what we're going to be doing 5 weeks ago. We know what we're doing today. And so staying in the present and being with what is, making decisions from what is right now, is the best place to start. Now, most of us as human beings don't really feel good about uncertainty. We'd like to know what we're going to do today, what we're going to do tomorrow. We've all been involved in setting goals. And, by next week, I want to have this done. My goal for the end of the month is whatever that is, in work or home or whatever. And that's all gone, because all we know is what's happening right now. So the opportunity to really support ourselves and each other, whether it be coworkers, children, parents, whatever generation a person happens to be in, to be able to support through the 3 keys that you mentioned, Alex, which are listening, being curious, and asking questions. Because just as my friend had asked me, what are you going to do in 5 weeks? If I would have answered him, I would have been making an assumption. And assumptions are what get us in trouble. It's only by my asking you what you want, what you need, and really listening, that I can be of support to you and be a real friend.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And, with a lot of, I just had a conversation a couple days ago and gave her the advice you gave me a long time ago. And it was, when we stop making so many statements, we can really start finding more solutions to our community, because we're asking more questions. And so as we go through this, a lot of people, like you mentioned, are not feeling safe. There's a lot of emotions that are coming up because of a lot of information is coming in. So what can people do right now to start practicing one of these? Let's take curiosity. Let's dig into one of the keys. So when we mention being curious, what's an actionable, what's something people can do to take action when it comes to curiosity?
Well, curiosity is, it's an untapped resource. So with everything that occurs, if we become curious about how we might be able to do things differently, as an example. So I think about just going to the grocery store. Now, one of the grocery stores, there are other grocery stores, but King Soopers has responded with a curious directive or solution by allowing people over 60 to come in to their stores 1 hour earlier than everybody else is right now. That, in my opinion, was a response to curiosity. How can we support our older population? So how can being curious and goes along with asking questions. How can we support our kids who are home from school in ways that we've never thought of before? Because this is an entirely different time. So being curious about how we can do things differently really is a very good thing, and it has lots of gifts in it, because we may come up with ideas and ways of doing things that we'll be using years from now that would have never occurred if this pandemic had not happened. Because we also, as human beings, have a tendency to do things the same way. We get into a routine. And so being curious does two things. It gets us out of that routine. And whenever we ask a question, it takes our mind into a different place. And we can, through that process of asking questions and being curious about how we might do something differently, we'll find new ideas. We've kind of, so to speak, been in a comfort zone. And some of that has been really good. Like the people who have no longer have their jobs, that, as an example, work in the food service industry. That comfort was good, that they had a job. And now, since those are temporarily not available, there's an opportunity for thinking, what else can I do? How can I be creative in bringing in an income that perhaps I was too busy or whatever might have been in the way of thinking about that previously.
Yes, I agree with everything that you just said, and have so many relatable experiences just in the last week where those have really come into play. And so would you mind if I just shared a couple of examples of how?
I would love for you to, because I'm sure they'd be valuable to not only me, but everybody else.
Absolutely. Well, and it validates what you're saying. You know, a lot of, I mean, there's more people that are starting to listen to this podcast, so they don't know previously what was said in, you know, many previous podcast episodes in the past. So anyways, to just shed some light, I'm a single mom, and my son's been home the last week, and now he'll be home for at least the next 30 days, if not the rest of the school year. So I get to learn how to be a homeschool mom. And on Monday, so today's Friday that you and I are recording this, so just 5 days ago, my kid and I had a I had a stressful day. I don't know if he was stressed, but I had a stressful day because I'm like, you know, how am I going to manage all of this? And I started feeling stressed, and you and I talked that day, and I thought I was coming down with the virus because my throat was hurting and I was tired and irritable and my head was hurting. And I'm like, and then you brought to my attention a question of curiosity. What if it could be stress? And by all means, and I woke up early the next day, and I spent time in my centering myself, and it was an amazing day. And I looked at this opportunity that Travis and I, my kiddo, get to spend the next maybe 3 to 6 months together. And I'm sure that social isolation will be lifted in 3 months or so. Who knows? But and then we'll get to go out a little bit more and have some fun, but how much more gratitude we're going to have when we re-engage in society in a personal way. Like, just thinking about being around a friend right now and sharing dinner, it just feels, I mean, it would be amazing. When just a couple weeks ago, being around people, it was just that routine that you talked about, just out and about doing things and not really, I mean, I love being around others and having one-to-one conversations or being in a big group of people because that's my style, that's my personality. So being alone is providing this space to connect with people without driving around for 3 hours out of the day. And that's as a networker, as a salesperson, and that being my job is to meet with people and do that. I'm now realizing I don't have to drive for half my day to go around and meet with people and be a crazy person and only have 4 meetings in a day. Instead, I could have 8 meetings in a day virtually. And this is allowing that space to make that a reality. And I'm gonna be honest, I was avoiding meeting with people virtually before because I think I was also avoiding what I feel God has in store for me, which is to grow my business to the next level, to scale it to a place where it does provide the goals that I have in mind, you know, that I can actually reach those quicker than running around all day. And people, like you said, get to be creative in how they're bringing in income. Maybe they've had, I believe I believe majority of people, and this is just from conversations I've had, I've very seldom met someone who doesn't have an inside dream that's been buried down under their responsibilities and the life that they've created, to where that dream that they had at one point in their life has flickered off, and now there's an opportunity for that light to come back on. And but we need courageous leaders. We need people who are willing to be vulnerable and share what they're going through, but also share how they're getting through it, because everyone has a story of poor me, you know, everyone does. Everyone's been through heartache. I don't know everyone, but a lot of people, right? I don't want to use all or nothings, but a lot of people have been through heartache, lost jobs, lost loved ones to death. And we all have those stories, but it's our choice to create a story of redemption, a story of salvation, whether that be through finding a higher power that cares about us more than ourselves, through that unconditional love. Like, those are the stories worth sharing. And I think this is going to provide a new page for people to write that story of, you know, I went through the coronavirus and everything that happened, and here's how I made it to the other side. And so seeing that curiosity, like what story do I get to write out of this, is something that I'm finding is true for me right now. And then providing the blank pages for thousands of others that I get to contact over the next 30 to 60 days, because I have the time through social media and through my phone. And those are really the only two ways, but saying, hey, I have a blank page. Would you like to start writing a different story for yourself? Because there's a problem to every solution, and there's a solution to every problem. And this pandemic is going to divide those two people, and it's going to be very obvious, not in a bad way. It's just, you're either going to be a problem person or a solution problem in this moment that we're facing. And if we choose to be solution oriented, our children will benefit from that. Those of us that have children at home, they're going to see that we are, you know, rising up or we're crumbling. And but through conversations like you and I are having and sharing this with the public, it can be a time of opportunity, curiosity, asking questions, and providing extraordinary support. So that's been my experience this week. Because I've been problematic and I've been solution oriented, and I'm telling you, life is much easier when I'm looking at solutions for the problems we're facing. It's so much better.
And I just wanted to comment on one thing. Somewhere in your sharing, you mentioned the word gratitude. And that's, before we get on to the listening and asking questions that we want to talk about as well, I just want to mention a little something about gratitude. You know, when we're in these situations, we have an opportunity to see the things that we have in our lives that we can be grateful for. And gratitude is an immune booster. You know, what we're dealing with is something that, you know, people with compromised immune systems are more, it's more of a challenge for them. So along with whatever else a person is doing to boost their immune system, gratitude helps also. Being in a state of gratitude. So I'm very grateful right now that we're able to share some ideas that will be supportive to those who are listening to this podcast, Alex.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So let's talk about listening. We covered curiosity and dived into that a little bit, and being curious, what can we do with this situation? What can come out of this? What ideas can we cultivate now that wouldn't have been there had this pandemic not happened? So let's dive into listening.
So there seems to be a good number of people who don't really understand what listening is. Some people actually think that listening is being quiet, my being quiet while you're talking, and during that time when I'm quiet, I'm formulating what I'm going to say, which is not true. When you are talking, and especially thinking about anyone who's being challenged by what's happening, feeling unsafe, feeling scared, all of that kind of thing. When we have an opportunity to support a person in that kind of situation, the first thing we want to do if we're going to listen is be totally attentive and turn off whatever is happening in our mind, what we think they might be experiencing, or what we know, because if we stay with what we know, we're never going to get any further. We're never going to get to the next intersection. So having an open mind, being attentive, in some cases, it may require stopping what a person is doing in order to be an attentive listener. So an example is, you're not being an attentive listener when you're watching a TV program, or reading a newspaper, or reading a book, because the mind cannot focus on both of those activities, and the listening experience is so important. And again, I mentioned it's always important, but especially if someone is hurting in some way. And so being totally present, facing the person, if possible. If you're on the phone, you're not able to do that. However, you can bring all of your attention to that particular situation. So being totally present and aware and attentive, being open, and then as the person is talking, using prompts so they know that you're with them. Like, I see. Okay. And then what happened? And what feeling does that bring up for you? So the person really knows that you're with them, and just that act will increase their feeling of safety and security, just to this point, because we all need to be heard. It's a human characteristic, and sometimes we need to be heard more than other times. So just using those prompts, and then hearing, really tuning into what you feel the meaning of what's being said is. What's perhaps you get a feeling of what's underlying, and still staying in the listening mode. Asking clarifying questions, as I mentioned in the example, and what are you feeling, and then what happened, that kind of thing. And then feeding back to the person who was speaking what you heard, to make sure that what they sent was what you heard and was delivered. Because if you restate it back to them, this is called active listening. They have an opportunity then to say, yes, this is correct, but oh no, this is not correct. That's not what I meant. So we have an opportunity then to get the communication going very well. And if there's some silence in the conversation, if the person who's speaking needs to take a little time to just be with their thoughts, be with their feelings, maybe even cry, that's perfectly okay. When someone is crying, it's just an expression of emotion. And there's no need to change what you're doing and try to save the person or rescue the person.
It's 11 o'clock.
It's just, it's an opportunity to just be with them as they experience whatever it is that they're feeling. I remember in something I read the other day, a woman was saying she didn't even, when a person was crying, she said, I didn't even offer to go get a Kleenex because it breaks the experience that's going on there. If you could reach for one easily and give it to a person. But like I said, we don't want to make any assumptions of what a person is feeling. If we notice any sadness or fear or anything, because until we ask questions, we really don't know exactly what they're feeling. And if we make an assumption, it can shut down whatever safety has been created. So some other questions that could be appropriate are, could you tell me more about that? Asking, like I mentioned before, what are you feeling? And perhaps that will involve asking other questions. Like if somebody says, I'm just scared, asking another question, can you tell me a little bit more about exactly what you're scared about? Is it that something might happen to you physically, or is it some people around you? Just those kind of questions in a very gentle way, as opposed to an attorney in court who's interviewing the witness. This is in a very gentle, loving way. Asking, what is it that you need? And we might be very surprised at the answer to that question. What do you need? Which could be different from what do you want? That might be another appropriate question to ask in other situations. We might also ask, how can I help you? How can I support you? Sometimes people are uncomfortable asking for help, asking for support. It might be a new way of being to accept support from somebody. Because we might learn, if you just go get my groceries for me, I'd really appreciate that. As an example, where they might have not been able to say, would you get my groceries for me? So anticipating in your thinking what people might want, but not making the assumption that that is for sure what they want, but asking questions from that perspective. Does that feel pretty clear, Alex?
Yes, that feels pretty clear. I thought maybe we could do an example. So how about I'm the one that's calling you because I'm stressed out, and then how you're going to handle that. We could just do a quick
I just
1 minute exercise.
I just had this example yesterday. I actually called my son, who was going to come over tomorrow, and told him that I didn't want him to come over tomorrow because we don't know where anyone has been.
Yeah.
And I explained to him that it had nothing to do with family. I said, it doesn't have anything to do with family. It just has to do with if we're going to be doing social distancing, it's really, really important to take it seriously. And then my daughter-in-law got on the phone, and both my son and daughter-in-law are school bus drivers. So they're home. And my daughter-in-law is very involved in her church, and it's difficult for her to not be at church, to not be involved. Those are all challenges for her right now. So she was telling me that she had gotten a text from a particular group at her church, and with a Zoom link that they were going to get together on Zoom. Now, Tanya has never been involved in Zoom. This is not part of her world. So she started expressing to me that she said, I couldn't download the app on my phone, and I tried it on my iPad, and it opened up and I saw all these tutorials and I didn't know what to do. So I just have no idea how to do this. And I could tell immediately, she really wanted to be part of this group. She had no idea how to deal with this technology on Zoom. It was very frustrating. And so I went into a much deeper learning mode and said to her, Tanya, what are you seeing on your screen? And she again mentioned all the tutorials and all those kind of things. I said, let me get my iPad so I can see the same thing that you're seeing. And that's what we do when we listen. We get into someone else's world. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's with devices, and sometimes it's just through listening. But I wanted to be in her world. So I got my iPad, and she was not, she only uses certain things on her iPad, which is true for all of us. We've been in a mode of just using certain things, and that's where the curiosity has to come in. Now I'm going to be in unfamiliar territory, and how can I do that? And that's where she was, this unfamiliar territory. So when I asked her to click on Safari, she wasn't even sure where that was.
Yeah.
And so she said, well, I can find it in settings. And so I directed her, no, that's not where you want to be. And I just kept talking, at the bottom of the screen, you will see, and this icon looks like this. And I described it because another thing that happens when we're stressed, and I'm sure that everybody has experienced it, when I'm stressed, I can't think as clearly as I could if I worked. And she was stressed because she wants to do this, couldn't figure out how to do it, didn't know what to do. So we got to Safari, and then she opened Safari and did a search for Zoom. And then I told her, the only thing that's important to you, because I don't know how she got into the tutorials, probably by pushing several buttons, looking around. I said, tell me what you see on your screen. And she told me, and I said, uh, the link that says join a meeting is the only thing that's relevant for you. That's it. And so I said, this was yesterday, I don't know, mid-afternoon. I said, well, I'm not able to do it today or tomorrow morning, but tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to do a Google meeting with you so that you can learn in a safe environment with me how to get on. And once she's done it, there's a greater chance that she'll be able to do it again, because they sent the text with an ID number in it on her phone. However, being totally unfamiliar with the technology, she doesn't even know what an ID number means.
Yeah.
So that's the important part of listening, getting into another person's world and getting to that exact same level of understanding.
Yeah.
Rather than just saying very quickly, do this, do that. That doesn't help. It only adds to the stress and frustration a person could be experiencing.
Yep.
It was a very powerful example of, because when I heard her frustration, and I'm not an expert on Zoom. However, I knew that I had enough knowledge to bring her to a place where she could do this effectively and get the support from her church that she wants so much. It means so much to her. So we're going to do that this afternoon. And so there were a number of points there that I just imagine it would be good to go over again. And that is, when you're listening, you're getting into another person's world. Forget about your world and what you think they should do, or the speed that they should go at, or that what they're feeling is dumb or not necessary or whatever. That's all that we are experiencing. But the person that you're wanting to support, you want to get completely into their world, be at their level. If there's something like what I just described with my daughter-in-law, make sure you're seeing the same things. And since more and more is being done virtually, that's the new normal kind of thing. Before it was a choice about doing things virtually. Now that's the way we have to connect and to really be with people that we care about and learn about things that we want. And those the 7 steps of really being present and not, I wasn't also trying to check my email while I was working with her on that. So just being focused on one thing, and that's the listening and being with the person who needs support.
Okay, great. You just said something that I think would be helpful. And for those that are listening, this is all available on the True North Facebook page, and then YouTube, and in the notes as much as we can on the podcast section. But you said 7 steps. Can we go over those 7 steps?
Absolutely. We'll go over them again. Number 1, be totally present and attentive. Number 2, be open. Have a non-judgmental mindset. Number 3, use the prompts like, I see. Really? What happened? That kind of thing. Number 4, hear the meaning of what is being said. The meaning that I heard from Tanya was she was frustrated, didn't know what to do, was likely ready to give up, really wanted to connect with her church. Number 5, ask clarifying questions. Number 6, restate what you're hearing so you make sure that the message didn't get translated from the speaker to the listener. And number 7, be okay with silence.
Great. And for there's the using prompts and asking clarifying questions. Could you please provide a few examples of what questions would be clarifying questions, please?
Asking, one of the questions that I call it like a back pocket question, because it helps so much. And that is, can you tell me more? Because it happens probably more, like 80% of the time when somebody tells me something, I have a little part of the story, but I don't have enough to really continue. And so I want to ask, can you tell me more about that? And then from there, if I still don't have enough information, I might ask for, if it's a big situation, can you tell me more about this particular section? I might use that question more than once. Another question, what are you feeling? What does that feel like? Tell me more about that feeling. This question, can you tell me more, is just so powerful. And what it provides for the speaker is that they know it's so evident to them that they are being supported and in a safe place. They can tell that it's safe to tell perhaps the rest of the story. Sometimes when we hear the beginning of a story, it's because a person doesn't feel safe enough to tell all of what's occurring.
Yeah. Well, and you brought up, just to validate what you're saying, when just yesterday I was talking to someone who posted about possibly losing their job, or they own a business, they have employees and they're worried about it. And so I reached out personally and said, hey, is there anything I can do to support you? I know we don't know each other. We're just, I don't know a lot of people that are on Facebook that I'm friends with. So just saying, hey, I know we don't know each other, but I saw your post. How can I support you? And so she vented a little bit, and I asked her a question about, it was more of like I was offering a solution, and she responded saying, well, no, I'm okay, but I just really wanted to vent. And so even while working with you, how I have been for the past year, and our friendship and our mentorship, menteeship, relationship, I'm still learning how to, just even through text message, just how to listen, because I want so much to make a difference in the world. I want so much to bring my lessons and my wisdom into someone else's world to help them stop suffering, because it's uncomfortable for me to watch someone else suffering through a situation. And that's a great place to be, but it's not a great place to start when someone's going through something. And you've taught me that, and exactly what you're talking about, these 7 steps, are the core of supporting someone. It really is. And even just as simple saying, you know, maybe asking and clarifying questions. Might you consider, or would you be open to an idea? And and that has been really helpful for me as well, because I'll ask someone, well, would you be open to an idea? Or might you consider something to help with that? And I've had people tell me no, they wouldn't consider an idea. And it's in the beginning when I started practicing this way of talking and communicating, it hurt because I was basically, no one wants to be rejected. No one. I mean, and it's, so in the beginning, this is an act of courage to ask people and to have conversations like this. It takes a courageous and brave person to step into a conversation and be totally present and attentive, to be open, have a non-judgmental mindset, to use prompts and hear the meaning of what's being said, to ask clarifying questions and to restate, to do active listening and to mirror what they just said, and then be okay with silence. That takes a lot of courage. And you know, you and I are not the only ones that are talking about this way of having a conversation. Brene Brown talks about it, and being vulnerable and being okay with silence, especially when we want to make we want to make a difference in that person's life. Well, this is a better way to make a difference in someone's life than snow plowing them with all of the wisdom that you have and all the ideas you have and how they can get to their solution faster. Well, some people just need to be, not some people, everyone needs to be heard. Why? I mean, that's why therapists are earning $150 an hour, some less, some more, but on average, you know, $100 an hour. People are paying someone $100 an hour just to listen to them and do exactly what we're talking about here. So it's needed.
And I just wanted to state in just a little different way something that you said, because you said something really, really, really important. Advice is not what people are looking for. So you mentioned that when you were texting with this person yesterday, that you had a solution that you shared. So if we get in the habit of turning whatever statement we have into a question, and you had mentioned several examples that you and I have talked about, would you consider, have you ever thought about, I'm curious, have you ever thought about doing it this way? And then going into whatever thought you had that could be helpful. It makes such a difference if you begin with the question and then put your idea, rather than giving the idea with, you know, here's what you should do. That word should, I encourage you to eliminate as much as possible. Just think about, rather than saying should, here's an idea of what you could do. Notice the difference, how it feels in your body. Should is, it just creates so many feelings in people's bodies. Could is a much gentler way of communicating something that you feel might help. Combining it with the, have you ever thought about the possibility of, well, could you do it this way? Or, however that language comes out in the situation that you're involved in.
Yep. Well, this is really good information. We've covered a lot of ground today with, you know, just some examples, acknowledging what the world is facing right now, acknowledging that we're facing something we've never faced before, that I think any of us have ever experienced in our lifetimes, where the whole globe is being isolated from each other, we're those of us that are practicing that, and then being open to what's coming, and then just as we talk to our friends, being considerate and by asking these kind of questions. And I mean, what a great flow chart. I have it all written out nice and pretty. I might print this and laminate it to put it on the wall, because I mean, gosh, it's, as we've been talking, I can already think of a few people that I could reach out to that I know are hurting, but I get so caught up in my agenda and what I want them to do and what I think they should do. And, thinking, God, well, haven't you been dealing with X problem for X amount of months or years and you still haven't figured it out? Like, cause I obviously know the answer to what they need to do. Like, so, which is it's a total lie. It's an illusion. And it's just, just calling and then just being present. And I have found when I do practice this, that relationship is it's more of a two-way relationship on a more consistent basis. And then I get to accept the responsibility that if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And so I was talking to a lady the other day, in my team, and she was talking about how she's upset at this one person for not responding to her, never reaching out just to have a personal conversation. It's always business. And I said, well, have you considered reaching out to her on a consistent basis and having personal conversations? And this is not to highlight. This is the opposite of what we're talking about. I'm not just now realizing that I gave her that advice. But what I'm trying to say by giving that example is that we can be the solution. We can be the change if we become, like you said, if we can even ask ourselves these questions and be totally present and attentive to what
Right.
we're feeling, and be open-minded to how we are, and have non-judgmental mindset towards ourselves, and ask ourselves these clarifying questions. I mean, this is good for internal reflection, and then external conversations for everyone, and just say, instead of telling ourselves what we should do, let's talk about what we could do, because change really does start with me and you and whoever's listening to this. So we can, but we have to, the way we treat ourselves and the way we see ourselves in our world is, I believe, how we treat others and see others. So we can use this in two different ways, with ourselves and with the people in our lives. It can be transformational.
Yes, I agree.
And one last thing I'll say, and then I'll let you wrap us up, or not let you wrap it, but you can wrap us up for this episode. When I started working with you, Judy, and I remember we were sitting in my car. That's not where we met, but that's where we had this conversation that really helped me. And, I was in a poor me mentality. I don't know how to do this. I was just stepping into professional speaking, trying to get this podcast off the ground. A company I was associated with, it was failing, and I was having a really hard time. And I was just making statement after statement after statement, because I looked up to you, and I still look up to you. And like with people we look up to, and making all these statements to vent it all out. And a lot of people in my life before I met you were more cheerleaders or friends, or just, they would listen, but then they wouldn't ask me the questions and didn't encourage me and challenge me to change. And so what you had told me was, well, maybe if you'd stop making so many statements, you could start learning about what's actually going to transform your life. You could start asking people questions and finding out what's really going on. Because I was complaining about people in my life, specific people. And you said, well, have you thought about asking them questions? And that was the first time since going into being an entrepreneur and going in, or solopreneur or whatever, like working for myself, that someone had it, where it felt like it was really iron sharpening iron. And instead of me just being iron out there, just, you know, roar, like on my, like, why isn't anything working? And no one's telling me what to do. And you help sharpen me. And I really appreciate that. And you've done that you've done that ever since. And I remember I called you, I think like a few days later, definitely within a week, and said all of the conversations I've been having are so amazing, because I had never actually stopped and used this. I made it an 8-step process, providing support in a curious way. Like, how can you then offer your ideas at the end of the conversation if they're open to it? So this 8-step process, I used it that week. And oh my God, my whole life changed. I mean, it was incredible, the conversations I was having. And I wasn't doing I was doing, I think, 20% of the talking. And it was awesome. Instead of talk, prove, sell, you know, validate me. That's what I was doing. And you changed my life. You changed my life. You are one of the most important people in my life, Judy. I love you so much. I'm so grateful for you. And I'm so grateful that whoever is listening to this, that they get to hear your wisdom too. I mean, they're just really lucky people.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
I remember those times a year ago.
Yeah.
I can see them in my mind's eye.
Me too. Yeah. Well, anything else that we would like to share with us before we wrap up?
I feel like we've really said pretty much all there is to say. Of course, we could go much deeper if we chose to.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've done enough this morning to give people some tools that they can use to make their lives better now and all through their life.
Yes, I agree 110%. And well, I think we'll have to schedule the 3 keys for extraordinary support part 2, and dive more into these different sections that we have, because it's important. And for anyone that's watching or listening, Judy is a coach, and she has an amazing program called Axiogenics that really helps with asking yourself the questions based on your specific perspective on the world and on yourself. And it's amazing. So don't hesitate to, at least you can reach out to her. She can be available at judy@judysabah.com. That's JUDY@JUDYSABAH.com. She's on Facebook, and or you guys can reach out to me and I'll give you her contact information. She offers a initial complimentary conversation to talk about where you're at in your life, what goals you're trying to reach. And the great thing about Judy is, if she's not the right fit, she has a Rolodex full of coaches and speakers and resources that she's not afraid to share with people. And so just know that if you found value in this and you want more, and you want to know how you can become the best listener and really unlock the keys to the future you've always dreamed of, she's a great person and a great place to start. So I appreciate you, Judy, and thank you so much for being on. And until next time, keep following your true north every single day of the year. Good? Cool.